I stared at the document in front of me, my hands trembling. The lawyer's voice sounded distant, like I was underwater. This affidavit states that you voluntarily gave up all rights to your father's estate. It's signed and notarized. My throat went dry. That's impossible. I never signed anything. The signature looked almost right. The loops were similar, the slant close enough. But it wasn't mine. I would remember signing away everything my dad left me. Across the courtroom, my stepmom Victoria sat perfectly still, her face blank. My half-brother Marcus was beside her, staring at his shoes. He wouldn't look at me, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just her scheme. He was part of it too. The judge adjusted his glasses. Unless there's evidence disputing this document, we'll proceed with the estate division as outlined. My lawyer, Jennifer, stood quickly. Your Honor, we formally challenge this affidavit's authenticity. We request time to investigate. You have 30 days, the judge said. Outside, my legs nearly gave out. Jennifer steadied me. They think they've already won, she said quietly. Let's prove them wrong. I looked back at the courthouse doors, where Victoria was smiling at her lawyer. She thought she'd buried me. But she hadn't checked if I could dig myself out. Dad's funeral was 3 weeks ago, but it felt like yesterday. I remember standing beside Victoria as she sobbed into my shoulder, her mascara running down my black dress. Everyone whispered about how strong she was, how devoted. But I saw something else. The way she checked her reflection in the church window. The way her crying stopped the moment people looked away. It felt rehearsed, like lines from a script she'd memorized. Before we continue, I would like to know where you're watching from in the comment section. Also hit the subscribe button and share this video, as this will help this video to travel far so others can learn also. At the reception, Aunt Linda pulled me aside in the church hallway. Her face was tight with worry. Victoria saw a lawyer before your father died, she whispered. She told me it was just planning ahead, but something felt wrong about it. My stomach twisted. How long before? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I scanned the room and found Victoria surrounded by sympathizers, gracefully accepting their condolences. She looked like a queen holding court, not a widow in mourning. Do you think she knew he was dying? I asked. Aunt Linda's silence was answer enough. That night, alone in Dad's study, I finally cried. His old leather chair still smelled like him, cologne and wood polish. I curled up in it like I used to as a little girl when he'd let me color while he worked. Everything I have is yours someday, he'd always said. Turns out, someday came with conditions I never saw coming. Dad always kept important papers in a black filing cabinet in his study. He'd joke about it being his vault, saying everything important was locked inside. I still had the spare key from college, when I'd helped him organize his tax documents. The morning after the funeral, I went looking for his will. I knew it had to be there, he was too organized to leave something like that uncertain. But when I opened the cabinet, my heart sank. It was completely empty. No folders, no papers, nothing. Just bare metal shelves. Looking for something? Victoria's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway, perfectly calm. I was checking Dad's files, I managed to say. Oh, I cleaned those out, she said sweetly. Your father asked me to before he passed. We updated everything together. New will, new arrangements. We? The word caught in my throat. Yes. He wanted to simplify things. You have your own life now, separate from the family here at home. He thought it was time to focus the estate on those still living under this roof. I wanted to scream at her, but my voice wouldn't work. She smiled. Don't worry. There's a small life insurance payout. You'll get something. After she left, I sat on the floor, staring at the empty cabinet. Then I noticed something under the bookshelf, one of Dad's law books with a page sticking out. Inside was a hollowed space, and in it, a torn envelope labeled, "Copy of Will," in his handwriting. The copy was gone. But the envelope proved he'd made one. And he'd hidden it from her. Jennifer spread 2 papers on her desk. On the left was the affidavit Victoria had filed. On the right was a rental application I'd signed 6 months ago. Look at the capital R, she said, pointing. Yours loops back. This one doesn't. And the Y is different, I added. Mine has a longer tail. Jennifer nodded. A handwriting expert would spot this immediately. The question is, who forged it? Victoria, I said. Or she paid someone. Either way, if she forged this, what else did she fake? That question kept me awake for days. The forged signature was just the beginning. What about Dad's new will? The power of attorney? The medical decisions near the end? Jennifer made copies of both documents, highlighting every difference. She prepared a formal motion to challenge the affidavit in court. We're going to dismantle this piece by piece, she said. But be ready. Once we start, they'll fight back hard. I thought about Victoria's performance at the funeral. The fake tears, the careful words, the way she'd positioned herself as the grieving widow. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated me. She'd assumed I'd see that forged signature and just accept it. She'd thought I wouldn't fight. She was wrong. Before I found Jennifer, I went to another lawyer. Carl Henderson had billboards all over town with his face and a cheesy slogan, "Call Carl, he cares." He didn't care. He barely listened. I sat across from his massive desk, holding a folder with everything I had, photos of the empty cabinet, the torn envelope, old emails from Dad. He flipped through them like junk mail. Losing a parent is hard, he said with a patronizing smile. Everything feels unfair when you're grieving. But without solid proof of fraud, you don't really have a case. Are you sure you're remembering things correctly? My jaw clenched. I remember everything. Can you prove your father wanted you in the will? I'm trying to. He closed the folder. Then come back when you have something concrete. Trust me, inheritance fights get ugly. You don't want to start a family war over this. But it was already a war. One I didn't start. I left his office shaking with anger. In my car, I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. That night, my friend Rachel listened to everything. Then she said, "You need Jennifer Hayes. She's a fighter. Carl's a billboard. Jennifer's a weapon." She was right. Jennifer didn't just believe me. She believed in the fight. And she was ready to burn Victoria's lies to the ground. Jennifer's office was nothing like Carl's. No flashy decorations or fake warmth. Just clean lines, law degrees on the wall, and a glass desk that made me feel exposed in the best way. She let me talk without interrupting. When I finished explaining everything, she tapped her pen against her notepad. "Do you want justice, or do you want revenge?" she asked. "Both," I said without hesitation. She smiled. "Good. Because that affidavit is suspicious. Filing it 3 weeks after your father's death? That's fast. Too fast." She didn't even pretend to grieve properly. That tells me she was desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Jennifer outlined our strategy. First, prove the signature was forged. Second, investigate the notary. Third, find the original will or proof it existed. Paper trails don't disappear, she said. They get hidden. And we're going to find them. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. For the first time since Dad died, I wasn't just grieving. I wasn't just confused. I was angry, and I had direction. Victoria had built her case on lies. She'd counted on me being too broken to fight back. She'd banked on my grief keeping me quiet. But grief doesn't make you weak. Sometimes it makes you stronger. And I was about to show her exactly how strong I could be. Dad's accountant, Patricia, worked in a cramped office filled with filing cabinets stacked to the ceiling. She'd managed his finances for almost 10 years. When Jennifer and I mentioned Dad's death, her face fell. I didn't know he'd passed. I'm so sorry. We explained the situation, the forged affidavit, the missing will, the estate being redirected to Victoria. Patricia frowned. That doesn't make sense. He updated his will 2 years ago. You were listed as receiving 50% of everything. My heart raced. There's supposedly a new version that cuts me out completely. He never mentioned changing it. And he told me you were his priority. Jennifer leaned forward. Did anything unusual happen before his death? Patricia hesitated, then pulled up her records on the computer. Actually, yes. 3 days before he died, Victoria called me. She said he was too sick to handle finances anymore, and she was taking over. She called you an emotional burden and wanted to know how to simplify the will. The words hit like ice water. Did you talk to Dad after that? I tried twice. Both times it went to voicemail. Jennifer and I exchanged looks. Victoria had cut off Dad's communication with his accountant right before he died. She'd isolated him, controlled the information, and then moved to erase me from his estate. Patricia gave us copies of every financial record she had. None showed any official will change. The evidence was stacking up. Victoria's story was crumbling. I couldn't stop thinking about Dad's last days. How tired he'd seemed, how foggy. At the time, I'd blamed the illness. Now I wondered if something else had been happening. 2 weeks before he died, I'd visited the house. He looked sedated, not just sick, but disconnected. He repeated himself several times, said odd things like, "It's all handled now," and "She's managing everything." He'd meant Victoria. I'd told myself not to worry. Now I regretted every moment I'd stayed silent. What medications was he taking? Jennifer asked during one of our meetings. He had a weekly pill organizer. Color-coded compartments. He was careful about taking everything on time. But when you visited? Some compartments were empty midweek. I thought he'd forgotten, but that wasn't like him. Jennifer requested the hospital's toxicology report. When it came back, the results were chilling. Dad's medication levels in his final days were nearly double the prescribed dose. He wasn't overdosing, Jennifer clarified. But someone was increasing his medication without proper authorization. It would have made him confused, compliant, unable to think clearly. My hands shook as the realization sank in. Victoria hadn't just stolen his estate. She'd controlled his mind. She'd drugged him into submission and then erased me from his life while he was too foggy to resist. I felt sick. But I also felt something else, a burning determination to make her pay for every single thing she'd done. I hadn't spoken to Marcus since the courthouse. We'd never been close, different mothers, different childhoods, but we'd been civil. I used to babysit him, make him lunch, help with homework. Then he helped Victoria erase me. I texted him to meet at a coffee shop near campus. I wasn't sure he'd show. But he did, wearing expensive sunglasses and looking exhausted. "I just want to understand," I said. "Did you really think I'd just give up my inheritance?" He shrugged. "Mom said you didn't want the drama. She showed me the affidavit with your signature. And you believed her? You've always been kind of distant from us. Marcus, you were in Dad's will too. Did you know your share dropped from 30% to 10%? His face went pale. "What? Victoria changed your portion too. She's not protecting you. She's using you." He looked shaken. "But she said." Then he said something that made everything click. "Well, Dad said you could keep the lake cabin anyway." I froze. The lake cabin wasn't in Victoria's version of the will. It had been completely removed. The only way Marcus could know about it was if he'd seen the original will, the one they destroyed. His eyes widened. He realized his mistake. "You knew, I said quietly. You knew the whole time. Wait, I didn't. But I was already standing. You helped her erase me for money. I hope it was worth it, Marcus. I walked out without looking back. The affidavit had been notarized by someone named Helen Pritchard. I'd never heard of her. We need to find her, Jennifer said. If she's real, we'll ask what she remembers. If she's not, even better for us. Notaries are required to keep logs of every document they witness, names, dates, ID numbers, signatures. Jennifer tracked Helen down within 2 days. I've never notarized anything for that name, Helen said over the phone. What was the last name again? My heart pounded. Jennifer emailed her a copy of the affidavit. An hour later, Helen responded. That's not my signature. I've never met these people. Someone forged my notary stamp. She sent us a sworn statement confirming she'd never notarized the document. It was signed, dated, and legally binding. So now we had proof. The affidavit didn't just have my forged signature, it also had a fake notary seal. That meant perjury, fraud, and possibly a felony. Jennifer smiled when she read Helen's statement. They just committed a crime in writing. This keeps getting better. I felt a surge of hope. Victoria had been so confident, so smug. She'd filed that affidavit thinking no one would question it. She'd assumed the system would just process it and move on. She'd never expected someone to actually investigate. She'd never expected me to fight back this hard. And now her lies were unraveling, one thread at a time. Dad used to say, everything that matters is in the box. He meant his safety deposit box at the credit union, a small bank with a vault that smelled like metal and cleaning solution. He kept backup copies of important documents there, deeds, certificates, insurance policies, and a copy of his will. Jennifer requested access records. The bank said only family members could open it, unless someone was listed as a co-signer. Victoria came in 3 days after your father passed, the manager told us. She had power of attorney paperwork. We let her access the box alone. Jennifer's expression hardened. Power of attorney expires when someone dies. You shouldn't have allowed it. We subpoenaed the security footage. It showed Victoria walking into the vault wearing black, carrying an empty folder. She wore gloves, latex ones, like she was handling evidence. When she walked out, the folder was still flat. She'd removed everything inside. The access log showed only her name. No witnesses. No inventory. No record of what she'd taken. Everything Dad had stored, gone. Probably shredded or burned. Dad had trusted that box. He'd told me once, if anything happens, check the vault. Victoria had made sure there'd be nothing to find. But she didn't know Dad had made multiple copies of his will. And she didn't know one of them was still out there, waiting to destroy her entire plan. I'd avoided listening to Dad's last voicemail for weeks. It sat in my phone like a ghost I wasn't ready to face. But now I had to know. I needed every piece of evidence, every word, every clue. I sat in the dark, hit play, and heard his voice. Weak, but clear. Hey, sweetheart. Just wanted to say I'm proud of you. Don't worry about visiting this weekend. She says she'll handle everything. A pause. Then, but if anything happens to me, don't trust what they tell you. Check everything. I left a copy with your aunt. You remember which one? My breath caught. He'd known. He'd known Victoria was doing something wrong. And he'd tried to warn me. I called Aunt Linda immediately. Did Dad give you anything to keep safe? There was a long pause. Yes. I think you need to come over. Bring your lawyer. That night, I barely slept. Dad had known Victoria was planning something. He'd hidden evidence. He tried to protect me even while she was drugging him, controlling him, cutting him off from everyone who could help. He'd fought for me until the very end. And now it was my turn to fight for him, and for the truth he'd tried so hard to preserve. Aunt Linda's house was small and warm, with creaky wooden floors and a bird feeder outside the kitchen window. She was waiting on the porch when Jennifer and I arrived. She didn't say much. Just led us inside, opened a desk drawer, and pulled out a sealed envelope. Her hands shook slightly as she handed it to Jennifer. "He gave me this 6 months before he died," she said quietly. "Told me to keep it safe in case things went wrong." Jennifer carefully opened the envelope. Inside were legal documents, Dad's will, properly signed, dated, and witnessed. I was in it. 50% of everything. The house, the savings, the lake cabin. The other half was split between Marcus and a scholarship fund Dad wanted to create. There was also a handwritten letter. I recognized his messy cursive immediately. "You're the strongest person I know. If you're reading this, something's gone wrong. Fight for what's right, sweetheart. Don't let them take what I meant for you." Tears streamed down my face. This wasn't about money. It never was. It was about him. About honoring his wishes. About not letting Victoria rewrite his final act. Jennifer carefully packed the documents into her briefcase. "She just lost her case," she said. "But let's give her one more surprise before we go back to court." I nodded, wiping my eyes. Victoria had tried to bury the truth. But the truth doesn't stay buried. And now it was about to come back and destroy her. The email came from nowhere. Subject line: "She bragged about cutting you out. I have proof." At first, I thought it was spam. But something made me open it. The message was short: "I used to work in your dad's house. You don't know me, but I heard what she said. I recorded it. I forwarded it to Jennifer. She called 5 minutes later. We're meeting them. But we're doing it in public." We met at a busy coffee shop. The woman who showed up was in her 50s, with kind eyes and nervous hands. Her name was Elena. She'd cleaned Dad's house once a week for years. "I liked your father," she said softly. "He was always respectful. Asked about my kids. Paid me fairly." She pulled out her phone. "One day I was vacuuming near the office. I heard Victoria on the phone. Something told me to record it." She pressed play. And Victoria's voice filled the space between us. "She'll sign it, or we'll just say she did. Nobody's going to question it. She barely visits anymore." A pause. Then laughter. "Once the girl's out of the way, it's all ours. And I already cleared out that cabinet." I couldn't breathe. Jennifer looked like she'd just won the lottery. Elena gave us permission to use the recording. She even signed a statement confirming she'd made it herself. We had everything now. The forged affidavit. The fake notary. The destroyed will. The backup will. The toxicology report. And now, a recording of Victoria confessing to the entire scheme. They'd thought I was weak. They'd thought I wouldn't fight. Now I wasn't just fighting. I was coming for everything. Jennifer laid out all the evidence across her conference table like puzzle pieces forming a devastating picture. "We could destroy them right now," she said. "But we're not going to. Not yet." "Why not?" "Because we're going to let them lie first. Under oath. In court. The bigger the lie, the harder they fall when we reveal the truth." Every part of me wanted to confront Victoria immediately. To scream the truth in her face, to watch her smug expression crumble. But Jennifer was right. Revenge wasn't about rage. It was about timing. We filed a formal response challenging the affidavit's validity and requesting all communication records. We didn't reveal what we had. We just made enough noise to make them nervous. Victoria's lawyer didn't respond on time. They thought it was standard legal procedure, just noise. They had no idea we were building a trap. And they were about to walk right into it. Jennifer gave me one final instruction. If you can get her to talk, casually, and record it, it's legal in this state. Don't accuse. Don't provoke. Just let her gloat. I knew exactly what to do. I showed up at the house with wine and the fakest smile I'd ever worn. Victoria opened the door, surprised but pleased. I want to move forward, I said. You were right. It's not worth fighting. Her eyes lit up. She invited me in, poured wine, and started talking. I recorded everything on my phone in my purse. She rambled about moving on and what your father would have wanted. Then she said it, you gave up your share, right? That's what we filed. I tilted my head. So I signed something? She hesitated. You must have. I mean, your name was on it. Perfect. I'd gotten her to contradict herself on tape. I hugged her goodbye and left, smiling the whole way to my car. Court day arrived. Victoria walked in like she was attending a gala, perfect hair, designer suit, pearl earrings. Marcus followed behind her like a shadow, still avoiding my eyes. Their lawyer looked confident. Comfortable. He nodded politely at me like I was already defeated. The proceedings began. They presented the affidavit first, painting me as distant, grieving, and uninterested in family affairs. They made it sound like I'd walked away willingly. I sat beside Jennifer, forcing myself to stay calm. To wait. To let them dig their own grave. When the judge turned to us, Jennifer stood slowly. Your Honor, we challenge the authenticity of this affidavit. The signature is forged. The notary never witnessed it. And we have recorded evidence of the defendant admitting to fraud. The courtroom went silent. Victoria's lawyer looked up, surprised. Victoria herself froze. The judge raised an eyebrow. You have recordings? Jennifer nodded. Multiple. Including one where the defendant admits the signature wasn't genuine, and another where she outlines her plan to falsify documents and empty the deceased's safety deposit box. She placed a USB drive on the clerk's desk. The air in the room shifted. You could feel it, the moment everyone realized this wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was a crime. Victoria's face drained of color. Her lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. But it was too late. The truth was already on the table, and there was no taking it back. The recording played through the courtroom speakers. Victoria's voice, clear and damning, she'll sign it, or we'll just say she did. Once the girl's out of the way, it's all ours. Even the clerk looked up. The judge's expression darkened. Jennifer stood again. We'd like to submit additional exhibits for review. Exhibit A sworn statement from Helen Pritchard, confirming she never notarized the document. Exhibit B, Dad's legitimate will, witnessed and properly executed, showing I was entitled to 50%. Exhibit C, the toxicology report and physician's statement questioning the sudden change in Dad's prescriptions, managed exclusively by his wife. Exhibit D, Dad's voicemail, warning me not to trust what I was told. Exhibit E, the recording from Elena, the housekeeper, capturing Victoria's confession. The evidence was overwhelming. Undeniable. Victoria's lawyer asked for a recess. The judge stared him down. Not today. Victoria shifted in her seat, looking around desperately. Her mask was slipping. The composed, grieving widow was gone, replaced by someone cornered and panicking. Jennifer sat down beside me, calm and confident. It's over, she whispered. And she was right. We hadn't just won the case. We'd exposed everything, the lies, the manipulation, the fraud. Victoria's entire scheme was unraveling in real time, and everyone in that courtroom was watching it happen. The judge leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on Victoria. Who notarized this affidavit? She opened her mouth. Closed it. It was mailed in. We had it done at the bank. Jennifer stood calmly. We contacted the bank. They have no record of notary services on that date. No surveillance footage shows either defendant present. The judge's voice hardened. Did you knowingly submit a falsified document to this court? Victoria's lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge cut him off. I'm asking her. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Marcus was sweating now, his knee bouncing under the table. The judge continued. You submitted a document with a forged signature and a fake notary seal. You attempted to execute a fraudulent will that conveniently excluded the rightful heir, whose original will you failed to disclose to this court. The entire room understood. This wasn't just fraud. It was premeditated theft. Victoria didn't look powerful anymore. She looked small. Trapped. The judge ordered a short recess. When we returned, something had changed in Victoria. The mask was completely gone now. She was desperate. And desperate people make terrible mistakes. When court resumed, Victoria exploded. I didn't do this alone. He helped. He knew about the changes. She pointed at Marcus. The courtroom gasped. Marcus shot to his feet. No. You said Dad changed it himself. You said she wouldn't even care. She? Jennifer asked, standing. She who? Marcus hesitated. My sister. You said she wouldn't notice. Victoria's face twisted with rage. I did what I had to. You think he was going to leave you anything? You think he even respected you? The judge's voice boomed through the room. That's enough. He ordered both of them into custody pending investigation for fraud, perjury, and attempted theft. They weren't handcuffed, but they were escorted out by court officers. I watched them leave, Marcus pale and shaking, Victoria still trying to maintain some shred of dignity. But there was none left. They destroyed it themselves. I sat there, not crying, not celebrating. Just breathing. It was finally over. The lies were exposed. The truth had won. Jennifer squeezed my hand. You did it. But I hadn't done it alone. Dad had left me clues. Aunt Linda had kept his will safe. Elena had recorded the confession. Jennifer had fought like hell. And I'd refused to give up. Together, we'd torn down Victoria's house of lies. 2 more hearings followed before the final ruling, but the outcome was never in doubt after that recording played. Victoria's lawyer barely argued. Marcus didn't show up at all. He'd been dropped from her defense entirely. In the final session, Jennifer reviewed the evidence one last time. The judge listened, then delivered his ruling. The affidavit is fraudulent. The notary seal was forged. The intent to deceive this court was clear and deliberate. He looked directly at Victoria. You attempted to erase your husband's daughter using forged documents. You weaponized grief. And you will be held accountable. His ruling was comprehensive. The affidavit was voided. The original will was reinstated. All frozen accounts were released to me. A civil fraud suit was approved. And Victoria was ordered to pay full restitution, including legal fees and damages. Jennifer squeezed my hand under the table. I realized I was shaking, not from fear, but from relief. It was over. Victoria had taken everything from me, my father's last wishes, my inheritance, my peace. But now I had it all back. With interest. A week later, Victoria left me a voicemail. Her voice was small, broken. I made a mistake. I panicked. Please, can we talk? I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Marcus texted, you didn't have to destroy her like that. I didn't reply. They'd made their choices. They'd thought I'd disappear quietly. They were wrong. I visited the lake cabin alone a few days after the final ruling. It was dusty and cold, but still perfect. The same creaky floorboards Dad never fixed. The old wooden table where we used to eat breakfast. His fishing rod still hanging over the door. I lit a fire in the fireplace and sat by the window, watching the lake ripple in the wind. For the first time in months, I felt peace. Not because I'd won. Not because Victoria had lost. But because I'd honored Dad. I'd fought for his wishes. I'd refused to let his memory be rewritten by someone who'd manipulated and controlled him. I thought about the voicemail he'd left me. His warning. His trust that I'd figure it out. He'd known I was strong enough. He'd known I wouldn't back down. And he'd left me everything I needed to fight back. I wasn't just his daughter. I was his legacy. Later, I drove to the cemetery. I brought coffee, his favorite, hazelnut with cream. I sat beside his headstone and talked to him like he was still there. I kept my promise, I whispered. I didn't let them win. The wind rustled through the trees, and for a moment, it felt like an answer. The months after the ruling were strange. I'd spent so long fighting that I didn't know what to do when the fight was over. I used some of the inheritance to finish the scholarship fund Dad had wanted to create. It was for students studying law, kids who wanted to fight for justice the way he had, the way I had. The first recipient was a girl from a small town who'd lost her mother to a similar estate fraud. When she thanked me, I saw myself in her eyes. The same determination. The same refusal to be erased. Your father would be proud, Jennifer said when I told her about the scholarship. I hope so, I replied. I also started visiting Aunt Linda more often. She'd kept Dad's will safe when Victoria tried to destroy it. She believed me when others doubted. I owed her everything. One afternoon, we sat in her kitchen drinking tea, and she said, "You know, your father always said you were tougher than you looked." I smiled. I didn't believe him back then. Do you now? I thought about everything I'd been through. The forged documents. The courtroom battles. The recordings. The final confrontation. Yeah, I said. I do. She patted my hand. Good. Because you are. I still think about Marcus sometimes. How he'd been part of Victoria's plan, how he'd let her manipulate him into betraying me. Part of me feels sorry for him. He'd lost his father too, and instead of grieving, he'd spent that time helping his mother commit fraud. He reached out once more, months later. A short email, "I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad it was." I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because some apologies come too late. He'd made his choice. He'd chosen money over family, lies over truth. And now he had to live with that. Victoria, on the other hand, disappeared. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state, trying to escape the scandal. But the internet doesn't forget. Her name was tied to the fraud case forever. I didn't feel bad about that. She'd tried to erase me. To drug my father, steal his estate, and rewrite his final wishes. She'd counted on me being too weak, too grief-stricken to fight back. She'd been wrong. And now she'd lost everything, her reputation, her home, her son's respect, and every dollar she'd tried to steal. Some people call that revenge. I call it justice. I went back to work eventually, to my normal life. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I'd learned things about myself I never knew. That I was stronger than I thought. That I could fight, even when everything felt hopeless. People at work asked where I'd been. I told them I'd been dealing with a family issue. Most didn't push. But one coworker, Sarah, pulled me aside one day. "I heard about what happened," she said quietly. "My mom went through something similar. She didn't fight. She just let them take everything." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. I'm glad you fought. It gives me hope that not everyone gets away with it." Her words stayed with me. I hadn't just fought for myself. I'd fought for everyone who'd been silenced, erased, or manipulated by people they trusted. That night, I looked at the framed photo of Dad on my desk. He was smiling, holding a fish he'd caught at the lake. He looked happy. Free. I did it, Dad," I whispered. I kept the promise. And for the first time since he died, I felt like he could rest. Because his wishes had been honored. His daughter had fought. And the truth had won. Today, I live quietly. I kept the lake cabin and visited on weekends. I finished Dad's scholarship fund and watch it grow every year. I stay in touch with Aunt Linda, Elena, and Jennifer, the women who believed me when it mattered most. Sometimes I think about Victoria and Marcus. I wonder if they ever feel remorse, or if they've convinced themselves they were justified. I'll never know. And honestly, I don't need to. What I needed was to prove I wasn't weak. That I wasn't someone who could be erased with a forged signature and a fake smile. I needed to honor my father and everything he'd built. And I did. People sometimes ask if I regret how hard I fought.